Morning. Good morning. It is so good to see you all this morning. Welcome to this service of worship. If you are guests with us today, I especially welcome you. If we haven't had occasion to meet, I'm Tim Bruster, Senior Pastor here at First Church. And on behalf of the whole church, I welcome you to this service of worship. So glad that you're here. And now let's prepare our hearts and our minds for worship.
If you are able, I invite you to stand now for our call to worship. When the storms of life are raging,
God will stand by me.
In the midst of tribulation,
God will stand by me.
in the midst of faults and failures,
God will stand by me.
when I am worn out and have no strength,
I will have hope in the Lord, and the Lord will renew my strength. God will stand by me.
I ask you now to turn back to your bulletins so that we can affirm our faith together. We are not alone. We live in God's world. We believe in God, who has created and is creating, who has come in Jesus, the Word made flesh, to reconcile and make new, who works in us and others by the Spirit. We trust in God. We are called to be the church, to celebrate God's presence, to love and serve others, to seek justice and resist evil, to proclaim Jesus, crucified and risen, our judge and our hope, in life, in death, in life beyond death. God is with us. We are not alone. Thanks be to God. Amen. Please be seated.
is able to deliver in time of storm.
I know that He'll keep you safe from all earthly harm. One day when my weary soul is at rest, I'm going home to be forever blessed.
Trust and never doubt, Jesus will surely bring you out. He never failed me yet. I will sing of God's mercy every day, every hour. He gives me power. I will sing and give thanks Moses from King Pharaoh.
And did he cool the fiery furnace for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? When I think of what my God can do, he delivered Daniel, I know he will deliver you.
Trust and never doubt, Jesus will surely bring you out. He never failed me yet. I will sing of God's mercy every day, every hour. He gives me power. I will sing and praise to Thee for all the dangers, toils, and snares that He has brought me out. He is my God, and I'll serve Him. No matter what the test, trust and never doubt. Jesus will surely bring me out. He never failed me yet. He never failed me. He never failed me yet. He never failed me. He never failed me yet. He never failed me. He never failed me yet. He never failed me. He never failed me yet. He never failed me. He never failed me yet. Trust and never doubt. Jesus will surely bring you out. He never failed me yet.
Friends, the Cornerstone Youth Choir. Oh my gosh, yes! The Cornerstone Youth Choir. And thanks to every member of the choir, to Aaron Yipia, to Darwin Lee. Oh my gosh, and Peggy up there just no doubt enjoying every moment in the middle of it. That was simply the best. Well, I wish I could give you some rhythm for this scripture reading, but I'll simply try to do it, how about just properly? How about that? This is from the prophet Isaiah, and this is from the Common English Bible. Don't you know? Haven't you heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He doesn't grow tired or weary. His understanding is beyond human reach, giving power to the tired and reviving the exhausted. Youths will become tired and weary. Young men will certainly stumble. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will fly up on wings like eagles. They will run and not be tired. They will walk and not be weary. God speaks to us through the reading of Scripture. Thanks be to God.
I'd like to invite the children to come down for our time together. Kids, come on. All right, good morning. First, I want you to say hi to my helper today, who is Jordan. Say hi, Jordan. Say hi, Jordan. There we go. Thank you, youth choir. Y'all are bringing it today. Thank you. So, sanctuary means safe place. And this is a safe place for a lot of things, for all of our feelings and for some honesty. So I'm going to be very honest with you. There are days I just feel worn out. That I feel like the furthest thing from a member of the youth choir, where I just don't feel like I can bring it. Like I'm just tired, like I'm carrying around a lot of bags that are very heavy. In fact, some of those bags are in this room right now. Jordan, help me find some of those bags. Where are some of, Let's go get that bag right there. All right, Jordan, would you hand me that one? This one is sports. Now, for me, that's not that heavy of a bag to carry. Sometimes it can be, I had 3 pieces of pizza. I should probably go get some exercise. But then, all this gunk that's in the air, it gets my allergies acting up, so I'm trying to weigh it. If I go out and exercise, I'll be worn out because of that. And if I don't go exercise, I'll be worn out because of the said pizza. But I go and I work out, and I feel a little bit better, but it can still be too much. My body can start to feel a little worn down. And for you, I think you've got it even harder, because when I was a kid, we actually used to play sports. We didn't anxiety sports. We didn't stress sports. We didn't go, oh no, if not sports, I won't get a scholarship or I won't look good in front of all my friends. We actually played. So that can be a bag that can feel a little heavy sometimes. That playing sports feels like it's a little bit more pressure than it used to be, but it's just one bag. That's not that heavy. I can carry that around. I mean, come on, Mr. Mark, don't be such a wimp about that. Are there any other bags? Where are some other bags? Oh, okay, let's go to that one right over there. And this one says homework. And by the time my girls were in about 5th grade, I really was unable to help them with their homework anymore, because you're learning stuff that didn't exist, or we didn't know it existed back when I was your age. And see, I still have homework too. For me, you know what homework often is? It's an email that I have to write. Usually an email comes in at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after I've had a perfectly lovely day, and I just get one that just makes me go, ugh. And then I spend the rest of the day brooding over it, and I go home and I brood over it, because you know what they say? Well, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, and that's a bunch of baloney. If you love what you do, you take it home with you and you obsess over it, and you go to sleep thinking about it, and you wake up the next morning you wake up 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about it, and then you go and you spend the whole next morning writing the perfect email, and you spend the whole next afternoon waiting for the response to that email come in. I told you I was going to be honest today, right? It's starting to get a little heavy, and you with all your homework, and not to mention chores and taking out the trash and picking up the gifts that the puppy left out in the backyard, that's a lot. But we're not done with bags yet. Are there more bags? Oh, there's one right there. Yeah. Let's get this school bag. Oh, school. And it's not just the stuff we learn in school and all the work and the different expectations that all the teachers have and how to do the work. It's also, how do we fit in, right? How to fit in. Where am I going to be in a class with my friends? Do I get to sit by my friends? If I make too much noise, will the teacher keep me from sitting next to my friends? Who will I sit with at lunch? And you know what? When you're a grown-up, those things don't go away. They really don't. And it starts to get heavy. And now I'm starting to carry around a lot of stuff. I'm starting to feel pretty tired, because you don't just get to put one bag down and take up another one. You kind of carry these around. But I'm not done. There's another bag. Where is it? Oh, it's way back there. All right, Jordan. Let's go all the way back and get this bag. And this is the heaviest bag of all. Ooh. It's the bag that says pretending. Pretending to be good at all these things. Pretending to have it all together when I really don't. Putting a smile on my face and being cheery when what I really want to do is cry. When someone here in the church says, you know, Mr. Mark, you remind me of Mr. Rogers. And that means so much to me. And then all I can think of is, if you only knew who I really am, you wouldn't say that. And I get tired. And I get tired of pretending. And it's a lot to hang on to, and it's a lot to carry around with me. And thank God I have here, and thank God I have you. Because this is a safe place where I don't have to pretend like I'm strong anymore. Where I can be tired, and I can be weak, and I can put these down, and I can just lie down for a second. Oh, that's the stuff. You should try it. Actually, you know what? You should try it. Come on. Come out here. Come on. Let's go. Find a spot. Come on. And just lie down. Sorry, moms, if anybody gets anything on their dress. Email me at mmarshall@myfmc.
You're sorry as well as tired.
And you know what? We don't have to carry that around with us the whole time, because there is someone who is ready all the time to take it off our shoulders, and that is God. So here's what I want you to do. Let's breathe in peace, and let's sigh out and say peace. Now breathe in trust, and sigh out trust, trust. Breathe in hope, and sigh out hope. And repeat after me. Dear God, thank you for safe places.
Thank you for safe places.
We don't have to carry it all,
We don't have to carry it all,
because you can.
because you can.
Amen. All right. You may go back.
Hooray for Mr. Mark and Jordan and all of our children and this safe place. And to all of you, we say welcome to this safe place, to this sanctuary. I am the person connected to mmarshall@myfumc.org. My name is Mike Marshall. I'm one of the associate pastors here. I am honored to serve here. And we all have different things that we are able to focus on. And for me, one of my focus areas is trying to help everyone feel connected within the church. And I love that. And so with that in mind, to all of you, to all of you who have signed the attendance pads, thank you for doing that. If you haven't, we thank all of our guests, all of our members for doing that, for sharing it with each other, for being alert to the people who are around you. If you would like to learn more about this church, if you would simply write down the word coffee next to your name, I'll make sure that you're contacted, and I would love to have coffee with you just to meet you and to learn how you would like to be a part of this congregation. Perhaps you've heard that we have grace groups in our church. This is a growing ministry. They are small groups of people who get a chance to get to know each other, to support each other. There is a new batch of grace groups that have begun this fall. 3 of the groups, one on Monday evening, one on Wednesday evening, and the other on Thursday afternoon, they have openings. And if you would like more information about that, please just write the words grace groups next to your name, and then Dr. Zhenya Garina Rodriguez will contact you and will make sure that you have an invitation to that. There are invitations today that are happening out in the garden, and it's for our Kids Hope International program. This is our mentoring program here in the church. 2 years ago on this day, I went out in the garden and I went to Gay Ingram, who leads the program, and I said, I've heard about this for years. I would love to become a mentor, and I can't begin to tell you how much I enjoy it. Simply giving 1 hour a week in one of our elementary schools in Fort Worth ISD, nearby elementary schools. If you would like more information about this program, I encourage you, after the service, go outside and look for the balloons, and then walk to the balloons, and there will be lots of nice people there who will share with you about Kids Hope. Well, we already have been blessed by great music this morning. through the Cornerstone Youth Choir, through Peggy, through Aaron, through Mr. Darwin Lee, right here, the pianist, the accompanist for the Cornerstone Youth Choir, and who has a doctoral recital this afternoon here at our church at 2 o'clock. And I want to invite all of you who can, go have some lunch, come back here to this safe place at 2 o'clock and be filled with the gift of music. And we are so grateful for that. You bet. Donwin, thank you. You bet. Would you like to say anything? Yeah.
2 years ago, when I first joined this family, I have no idea what does it mean to me. And after 2 years, be with the wonderful kids and Mama Jay and Peggy, everybody, and Aaron, everybody. And now I feel like this is every week I have a special moment that I can find a place which is loved, peaceful, and blessed, and I can find and feel so much love here. And I'm so grateful for being part of the family. Thank you.
Yay. Yay. Darwin, thank you. 2 o'clock this afternoon, right here. And one last thing, I want to tell you about something new in our church so that you can pass the word. A number of you this summer went above and beyond and had so much fun with our college students who came home for the summer, offering our college students a way to be together on Sunday mornings, to be reconnected with each other. And now many of those students, especially those who've grown up in our church, have gone back to schools all over the country. Well, here in our area, we are filled with both undergraduate and graduate level students who are right here. And so there is a new college ministry beginning next Sunday. It's called The Shift. And it has two parts initially. One part is pass the word. If you know students who would like to bring their ID with them and to come here on Sunday morning and to go to the kitchen for free breakfast tacos, all you have to have is an ID. That's part of it. And then a chance for these students to be together. And I don't just mean from TCU or Texas Wesleyan, I mean in the big picture. And this is beginning next Sunday, and I hope you will pass the word about The Shift. The Shift is the name of this college ministry. Well, we have a word to pass right now, and it is the grace of God that gives us peace. So I invite you now to take a moment to stand up, to move around, to say good morning and offer the peace of Christ to one another.
Please be seated. We are continuing our series, Facing Life's Storms. And today we're talking about, as Mr. Mark said, being worn out. There are different kinds of tired. Sometimes there is the kind of tired when you've worked all day on a project that you really care about and it went very well. And at the end of the day, you say, I am so tired, but it is a good tired. You know what I'm talking about? Good tired. And then there are those days when you work and it's just kind of neutral and you're just exhausted at the end of the day. You're just tired. And then there is that kind of tired that goes beyond the physical. It's mental, it's emotional, it's physical also. It's that tired when you've gone through something really emotional, when you've dealt with a situation with heavy emotions involved, and you're just tired, maybe even exhausted. But there's another kind of tired even. And it's physical, mental, emotional, but it's also spiritual. It has that other dimension. And it kind of defies description in a way. And if you search for a word that describes that kind of tired, maybe you can reach all the way back to the early monastic period in the Christian church. The early monks who lived in the desert and they did their work and their study and their prayer, often alone in the desert. And that word is acedia. Acedia. Kathleen Norris has written a book about acedia. She's a writer, and she thinks about that kind of exhaustion, that way of being worn out in her book. And she reaches back to describe it, and she takes this word from the early monastic period, and she says that it defies definition in a way. You look it up in the dictionary and you find words like apathy or listlessness or spiritual torpor. These are definitions you'll find for the word acedia, but it doesn't quite capture it. It's not depression. Sometimes people equate it with that. It's different than that. Kathleen Norris says that kind of exhaustion, that way of being worn out, is that feeling that you can't fully be in the present and the future seems so daunting you don't want to go there. That's tired. That's worn out. That's a level of exhaustion that touches us on the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional level. Acedia, she calls it. The early monks called it the noonday devil because when they were toiling at noonday doing their work or their study, it's at that time when it was difficult, they would find suddenly, to be in the moment, to be present, and the future just seemed relentlessly the same old thing day after day after day, and they couldn't face that either. And so they sort of became frozen, stuck, apathetic. Soren Kierkegaard, the theologian of the 19th century, perhaps described that in himself best in his work called Either Or. In that work he said, when he was in one of those periods in his life, I don't care for anything. I don't care for riding because that exercise is too violent. I don't care for walking because walking is too strenuous. I don't care for lying down because then I either have to continue lying and I don't care to do that, or I have to get up again and I don't care to do that. In summary, he said, I don't care at all. That gets very close to this kind of exhaustion. Kathleen Norris says in her book that this is a malady that is as old as the word, acedia, and as fresh as today. And it can come at us in all kinds of ways. We can feel so overwhelmed by the needs around us that we just withdraw. It's just exhausting to think about it. We can become overwhelmed with doing good, with doing lots of good things, and we can have that feeling that we're not making a difference. And we can become exhausted in that way. We can be in that place in our lives when it's hard to be present now, and the future just seems too difficult and daunting, as she describes it. So I think if you were searching for a word to describe what the people to whom Isaiah writes were experiencing, maybe that's a good word. Acedia. And Isaiah is really 3 books. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Isaiah. Scholars call those sections of the Hebrew Scriptures book of Isaiah. The chapter that we heard from a moment ago is the first chapter in 2nd Isaiah. It's written to people who have experienced the worst. Their home is wrecked. Jerusalem lies in ruins. The temple is in ruins. The walls of the city have been torn down. They've been carried off in exile. It's hard for them to live in the present, and they can't imagine a future. So they're exhausted. They are worn out. And Isaiah writes to give them a new perspective. And I was thinking about that word perspective this week. It's a rich word. It's a word that we use all the time to talk about the way of seeing things. And we can use the word perspective when we mean to say the accurate perspective. You know, we'll say something like, you need to, or I need to, get perspective here. And so Isaiah writes to give them perspective. But there's that other definition of the word I was thinking about this week. I remember art classes when I was in middle school. I am not an artist. But I remember the classes, and I remember learning about perspective. And how when you have perspective in your painting or your drawing, then it looks almost three-dimensional. It has depth to it. But it's really difficult to maintain that perspective, and you have to maintain that perspective throughout. Otherwise, it just flattens out. If it's just wrong a little bit, it flattens it out. That seems to be a kind of parable for us, for those people to whom Isaiah wrote. Isaiah wrote to give perspective. And this perspective that Isaiah is bringing to them is the perspective that God is God and God is faithful. And they're not alone in this. And that God never gets exhausted. And that God provides strength that they need when they need it. Listen to his words of giving them perspective. See, their perspective is that God doesn't care. We find that in the verse just before our reading for today. Because he writes, "Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel," that is the people, "my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God." You hear what they're saying? I'm just hidden from God. God doesn't care. God doesn't see. My right is disregarded by God. God doesn't care, they're saying. And therefore, they're probably saying, why should I care? They're worn out. And he says this, "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. And yet those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. He is trying to give them perspective, to provide a depth for their picture of the world and a depth for understanding their situation, that God's strength can get them through. The Apostle Paul, I was thinking this week about Paul, and I'd never thought about this before in relation to that thorn in the flesh that Paul writes about. It's in 2 Corinthians. Paul describes all these difficulties that he has in his life, and he had a very difficult, exhausting life. He was working all the time, trying to do the best that he could do, and he faced opposition, he faced persecution. Paul writes about that, but he said, he writes that on top of all that, he has this thorn in the flesh, and he doesn't ever say what it is, and people have speculated all sorts of possibilities for that thorn. But I wonder if that thorn in the flesh, whatever it was that tormented Paul, was acedia. Maybe it was, I don't know. No one knows. But I thought about that this week. I wonder if Paul had those times when he couldn't fully be present in the present, and when he looked into the future, he could just see more tribulation and more challenges and more problems ahead, and he just felt in every respect exhausted, worn out. It was in those moments when he experienced this thorn in the flesh that Paul said he prayed repeatedly to the Lord that it would be removed from him. And he got an answer. And the answer was, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." It's a pretty good answer for being worn out. You could paraphrase it. My grace is sufficient for you when you're worn out, because my strength, my power, is made complete and whole in those times when you are at the end of your strength. The good news of our faith that we celebrate today is, first of all, those times of being worn out don't last. But more important, God's strength is available for us when we feel just spiritually worn out or spiritually dry. God is still with us, and God's strength comes through for us. There is a poem I want to close with. It was made into a hymn, written by a poet of the early part of the 20th century. At the age of 6, she was orphaned, and then when she was a teenager, she developed arthritis that was crippling. By the time she reached adulthood, she couldn't walk. She wanted to be a composer and a concert pianist, but her illness prevented that. She couldn't play the piano. So she became a poet. That was her outlet, and ultimately she understood it to be her calling. She wrote her poems on a typewriter using her knuckles to press the keys because eventually she could not open her hands. And she wrote these words that I share with you this morning. God gives more grace as our burdens grow greater. God sends more strength as our labors increase. To added afflictions, God adds great mercy. To multiplied trials, God multiplies peace. When we have exhausted our store of endurance, when our strength has failed ere the day is half done, when we reach the end of our hoarded resources, our great God's full giving is only begun. God's love has no limits. God's grace has no measure. God's power no boundary known to women or men. For out of God's infinite riches in Jesus, God gives and gives and gives again. Let's bow for prayer. The prayer that I am praying this morning was written by my friend Carl Travis. Carl was the pastor at First Presbyterian Church, as most of you know, and he prayed this prayer nearly 5 years ago at the Day Resource Center breakfast. Holy God, it's an up-down world. You, up in heaven, us down here climbing toward you. We're convinced that this is the way things are, so we build it into our brains, assemble it into our understanding, and embed it in our language. We climb up the economic ladder. We pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We look up to some people and down upon others. Presidents are surely more valuable than paupers. CEOs are certainly higher than custodians, right? But God, what if we have assigned you the wrong address? What if there is no need to climb toward you because you're not up at all? Not up, but beside us, next to us, nose to nose with us. And God, if we stand shoulder to shoulder with you, shouldn't we stand shoulder to shoulder with one another? Holy God, sharpen our senses, focus our thoughts, challenge our up-down assumptions. Then knock us sideways, shift our gaze 90 degrees so that we see not up and down but left and right, so we see our shared circumstance and common context with others. Then God, shine upon us in 1,000 shades of grace. As you have showered us with spirit and substance, inspire us to empathy, action, and generosity. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I invite our ushers to come forward now, and as they do that, I simply say thank you to all of you for all the ways that you make a difference through your prayers, your presence, your gifts, your service, and your witness. I spoke earlier about Kids Hope and information and opportunities in the garden. It's because of your generosity that we can be part of the Kids Hope program, to truly make a difference for so many children and their families in two very important elementary schools. And for that, I say thank you. We've had so much joy in worship today, and now as this service comes to a close, if you've been a guest of ours and if you would like to become a member of our congregation, as we sing this hymn, Dr. Bruster and I would love to meet you at the communion rail, and we'll introduce you to the congregation. And then after the service, I'll be here at the communion rail. If you would like to come down and say hello, if there's any information about the church that you would like, I would be happy to give that to you. If you want to come and have a prayer, I also would be glad to do that. With all that in mind, let us now raise our voices to God.
Our gathering will soon be ended. Where will we go and what will we do?
We will go out to be God's people in the world.
May grace, peace, hope, love, and joy forever accompany you. Amen.